Good afternoon and welcome to HRD Live. I'm joined here with Dr. Rita McGrath, Thinkers 50 and best-selling author. Lovely to have you here.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. How did you enjoy your keynote session?
I thought it was exciting, but I hope the audience thought the same.
Rita, can you talk about how new leadership approaches is essential and what this looks like and how to change the current mindset?
So one of the reasons that we really need a new model for leadership is that to be able to operate quickly in increasingly uncertain environments that are changing very rapidly, you just can't wait for information flows to go all the way from the front lines to the headquarters back to the front lines again. You need to be able to empower people who are actually where the data are appearing and where the phenomena are happening to make decisions. And so that really means a leadership that is more about structuring, shaping, setting a direction, but not actually telling people what to do.
So, yeah, funny that you say about not telling people what to do. On the whole, how should leaders behave?
Well, I think you need to be good about structuring the desired goal and making sure people understand what's on strategy and what's not. I think those are really important things. I think you need to be good about providing context so that people understand the greater purpose for which they're behaving. But then I think you need to be also good about encouraging them to take action, to try things out, to make mistakes if need be, but make a distinction between mistakes that are rich in learning and that you can, where there was genuine uncertainty you didn't know, versus mistakes that were just sloppy execution, that kind of thing. So I think leaders in many ways have a much more challenging job than previously, which is, good ideas in the beginning look an awful lot like bad ideas, and bad ideas look an awful lot like good ideas. And so having the fortitude to select among them, I think, is another really important quality.
You've used the phrase snow melts from the edges. How can this be likened to companies and their boundaries?
Well, one of the things we're finding is company boundaries are actually becoming much more porous. A lot of activities that companies used to do in-house because of the changing nature of digitization are now being actually outsourced. So we're actually seeing companies outsourcing sourcing decisions, pricing decisions, competitive positioning decisions to providers.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Exhibitor lunch is now available from the left-hand side of floor 3. If you're looking at the Red Theatre, that's on your left-hand side for exhibitor lunch. And also in just to the left of the main stage as well. So 2 service points for exhibitor lunch. Thank you.
Sorry, do continue.
So I think organizational boundaries are becoming much more porous. And because of digitization, what we're now seeing is ecosystems are competing more with ecosystems. So there could be a constellation of several different companies that compete with constellations of other companies. So it really has changed the nature of what we think about when we think about an organization.
And you talk about the model of no hierarchies and how that sort of should exist. Have you seen this in action? What does this look like?
Yeah, well, I think when I say no hierarchies, what I'm not saying is there's no power structure and there are no decision rights. Right? I think at a senior level, you still want to retain decision rights and you still want to retain a certain amount of power because otherwise it's just chaotic. But what you do see is senior leaders behaving much more as facilitators, setting a broad direction and then helping people go for it. Here at the conference, you've got Microsoft is represented, and it's a nice example of a leader, Satya Nadella in this case, who said, broadly speaking, this is where we want to go. We want to look at leading indicators. We want to look at customer love, customer engagement, because those are leading indicators of what will happen later. So setting that broad direction, but then within that, allowing people the freedom to experiment.
And have you seen this work in organizations?
Oh, yes. Well, at Microsoft right now, that's going on. Yeah.
Fantastic. And what do you hope that delegates will take away from your talk today?
Well, I hope they'll start to understand how enabling and empowering talent is not something that only wizards working in the dark of night get to do. That it's actually something very pragmatic that they can start helping people work on. I do think it requires some different assumptions about what careers look like. For example, increasingly we're looking at what I'll call a tour of duty career environment where you sign up for a project or an effort and you see that through, and then the question is, well, Maybe I do something else for a while. Maybe I take a break and do some training. Maybe I join another organization, and then when a suitable project comes up again, maybe I come back again. So we're really seeing much more of this sort of temporary, project-oriented career development. And there's certain kinds of companies where this was always the case. Consulting firms or law firms in some cases, where it was project-based. Construction firms. That is now becoming more the norm across the economy.
And events like this, how useful do you think they are to HR?
I think they're incredibly helpful. A couple of reasons. We're all screamingly busy, right? So you spend morning to noon tonight running from meeting to meeting and reading emails and doing stuff, right? And so this event gives you a chance to break away from that. So it gives you a change of pace. Lets you connect with people who you wouldn't ordinarily have connected with. So for example, this morning in my keynote, we did a poll asking the participants to weigh in on how easy would it be to have really candid, really frank conversations in their organizations. And the bulk of people came down on, well, maybe yes, maybe no, it's very situational. But there were a few, I think it was about 8%, that said, oh, actually, we're good at that, we do that. And so an event like this gives those people a chance to really share what they've learned and how that works with the rest who have a lot to learn. So it's a great opportunity to pick up learning.
And do you have a personal highlight so far?
So far? Well, I thought the panel that came right after my speech on digitalization was very powerful. This notion that I think people go after digital sometimes as though it's this be-all and end-all and panacea. And one of the things that came out of the panel was very clearly there's a sequence to it. You start with the building blocks and then start filling in, and you can start getting fancy once you've got that stuff done. But if you don't have that foundation, it's not going to be a success.
Thank you so much for your time, Rita.
You're welcome.
It's been lovely.
A pleasure.
Thank you.